Hey guys, welcome to episode 7 of Into the Van. I am of course Mike West, and I can't thank you enough for tuning in. This has been a learning curve for me. It's been an exciting thing for me to do because, when you are a musician and when you're first starting out as a musician, you have to kind of find your footing and find your audience, find the best way to promote yourself, find the best people to network with. And I think with the podcast, it's given me a new opportunity to approach a different scene and have some real fun with it and create different promotional things. So I really thank you for coming along on this journey with me. The Next Life record now has release dates. On July 10th, Friday, July 10th, we're going to be releasing the single for the record, and it's going to be Rock Ferry, the song about my hometown. It's a song that I really enjoy playing. It's something that really means a lot to me. So that is going to be the single we release on Friday, July 10th. We've got a video with it that we recorded last week in the wind and the rain. We had to keep ducking in and out of the van to make sure that none of the equipment got fucked up. After the single release, we are going to be releasing the full record on Friday, August the 7th. Now, I have the test pressings sitting with me right now that I've listened to. There's some feedback to be sent over to the pressing plant, but as far as I'm concerned, everything's good to go and everything's on schedule. That's been really fun. I've also been working with Manila PR, which is a PR company that will be helping me push this album, because one of the things that I didn't want to do as an independent musician, which is something I think a lot of people fall into either due to like budget reasons or one reason or another, is if you spend this amount of money and time on an album and then don't have a budget to promote the album. And I know cynically you should be saying, well, if the music's good enough, it'll be found. And that is a argument and a point to discuss, but in this day and age, I think there is still a lot to say about having a PR team work for you to get the album out in front of as many people as possible. We've got some really fun radio plays coming up in June, which has been great. Hopefully the magazine and press reviews will be coming in soon as well, which is awesome. And it's a really exciting and nerve-wracking time for me. Obviously, I've been sitting on this album for 2 years from recording it, and now we're finally releasing it. And to finally have it out in the world is a really exciting and nerve-wracking time. So thank you so much for coming along on this journey. If you haven't pre-ordered yet, you can still pre-order, and I'm going to drop a teaser track for you right now.
Don't do like I've done, say a father's son. There's a difference between money and will. It's never the power, it's never the title, never the money itself, never the money itself, never the money itself.
And that is track 6, which is Father to Son. That is going to be the first track on side B of the actual vinyl. And I'm really happy with the flow of this record, how it sounds, the mixing and the mastering of it. And I really think this is something you're going to love. So, head over to my Bandcamp and my store at mike333west.com and you can pre-order your copy there. Now, without further ado, episode 7. Our guests today are the Plott Hounds. More specifically, it's Noah Alexander, the lead singer and guitarist for the Plott Hounds, and their tour manager, Pat. And Pat is a really interesting perspective to have because as the tour manager, he has this whole level of insight that we've not really tapped into yet in this podcast. And there's very few that I've heard. Again, I've talked about this before where it's you need to have the whole story, I think, to understand the music industry and how to really find your footing in it. And we'll speak to promoters and venue owners and things, and tour managers are one of those unsung heroes that don't really, if you haven't heard of a tour manager, they've probably done their job so well because they're the ones organizing all the logistics, the times, the scheduling, making sure everyone's where they need to be, and truly just keeping everything running. And watching Pat work on the July 2019 tour was something that I really admired and respected. He's such a fucking fun, friendly, caring guy who just knows what his job is. And there's something to really respect of someone who knows 100% what they're about, and, you know, completely professional, but, you know, also so approachable and so fun. And, you know, you're just running the merch and making sure that all the loading times were happening and people were where they needed to be. So this is a really fun talk for, you know, getting to speak to Pat and see what his job entails, how he got into it and things. And obviously we have Noah Alexander, the lead singer of the Plott Hounds. And I first met Noah online, which sounds weirder than it is, but that's how everyone meets nowadays. We were all part of this Facebook group, and I can't remember which one it was called, but Noah put up a playlist that he was doing. So I'd released Rusted at the time, so I sent him across a few tracks and was like, oh, what do you think of this? If you put it on a playlist, I'd be honoured. And he did. And then we kind of just started getting to talk from there. And then in 2018, the Plott Hounds first came over to the UK, and I managed to open for them on a Manchester and Sheffield dates. And Sheffield is where I also met the amazing Fargo Railroad Company. But, you know, that was a really quick meeting. It was only 2 gigs, rapid fire. But even then, the Plott Hounds are such a nice, amazing group of guys. And then in 2019, they came over for a longer tour with the awesome Blackwater Conspiracy, who I toured with earlier in 2019. So it was really, that was the most fun I've had in my career so far. It was the Blackwater guys, who are super fucking fun and friendly. The Plott Hounds, they stayed at my house when they first came. We all chilled, went around Liverpool, and then it was literally touring across the UK, including an amazing set at Ramblin Man Fair, which I was privileged to watch from the side of the stage. So Noah has been really not just a great friend, but also an influence of his style of songwriting. And, you know, the Plott Hounds do what they do so well. They've won a fuck ton of awards over in the States, rightfully so. They're such an amazing live band. They're relentlessly touring. Their new album, Damn the Wind, is fucking killer. And I really, listening back to this podcast while editing it, I would truly value this conversation that we've had, because it was so insightful and such a fun talk. And I really miss these guys, and I can't wait till they're back in the UK. So without further ado, Noah Alexander and Pat Adis from the Plott Hounds. Into the van we go. Welcome to Into the Van with me, Mike West. Go! So, the whole point of this podcast was to try and create something, because I know that a lot of musicians kind of struggle, and this is highlighted when touring goes off and record sales are already in the toilet. What else can you do to try and not just create things to engage with your audience and your fans and stuff? What can you do to try and just keep on creating? Because I know as a musician and a songwriter, that is going to play a big part in what you like do or what your drive is. And it's like, I did this podcast because I needed to do something else. And I think it's a really fun perspective, because obviously I know you guys. So it gives me an opportunity to sit down and talk to you about like songwriting and things. But is there anything that you guys as the Plott Hounds have thought about doing as like an extra bow in your arsenal or anything?
You know, I think, frankly, that's where we've struggled the most, you know, with this. It's, I mean, Mike, you know it as a musician, it's, you know, you make your money, and no one likes to talk about music as a way to make money, but, you know, to put things into a realistic context, margins are already, you know, tinier than a piece of paper. And when your main source of income is touring and playing shows, and you've already kind of waved the white flag on album sales and streaming revenue, which can barely keep a light bulb on, and, you know, 90% of your revenue is from in-person concert interactions, and that's how you've built your band and you built your business and you've built your reputation. And when that's kind of taken away, you know, it's like all 4 legs of the chair you're sitting on are kicked under. And not that I think we're ever a group to like wallow in our own self-misery unless we're writing songs. You know, it's really hard to see a way forward when, you know, the only revenue that you've ever figured out how to generate, the opportunities are even going to be smaller now. Yeah. And and we struggled a bit with that.
It's crazy, man. Like,
yeah, I think like the biggest problem for me has been like we're a full band. We're not a solo artist. It's really hard to like get content out there for us when it's one person. Because I know we want to avoid having one person be the complete star of the show every single time. And with lockdown, it's like we couldn't get together for a month and a half to do things. So it's like it just kind of got all put on pause for the most part, us creating stuff.
Well, that was what I enjoyed with you guys. You were doing the quarantine playlists. So it was each member was like making its own plays. I thought that was a really nice like touch to everything because it gave you more like styles and it gave you a bit more insight into each guy, like member of the band.
Yeah, for sure. That was fully the goal. Was like, I mean, we all have really diverse artists that we listen to. It's like let's show people that. I mean, Kevin and I listen to a lot of the same stuff, and Noah and I listen to a lot of the same stuff. But there's a lot of gaps in there that I wanted to like cover and everything. So with those playlists,
cool, man. And talking about like better days, one of the things about the internet I always love is like the connections I make, and that is how me and Noah met. I can't even remember the group we were on, but you started making playlists, and I think I dropped one of my songs in there, and you added it to a thing, and that's how we got talking.
Yep. Yeah. It's I mean, the internet is it's a blessing and a curse. It does wonderful things like the ability to get your music into hands of people reaching all the corners of the world. It is able to connect people and build relationships like we have with you, Mike, and then it doesn't pay anything.
No, true. That is like the biggest drawback from it all.
Yeah, and everybody's got an opinion, So
yeah, well, that's the thing. I've been just irate for the last 2 days. I put up a post asking because there's obviously a load of divides between like mainstream country, like what the UK country scene is, and I don't know if you guys have that same back and forth, but there was a lot of complaining about the UK scene and how it doesn't accept modern artists, but then it also doesn't accept older artists. Like there was a poll on something which triggered it, and it was, I can't remember who it was, but it was someone versus Mel Haggard, and Mel Haggard lost in the poll as like who voted for the best country artist out of the two of them. And then that kind of triggered this debate of being like, if this crowd or this scene isn't paying attention to that type of music, why are you still trying to win them over? So I asked, if you were going to engage with a new audience, what would you do? And all the comments I got were either cliches, which fucked me off, or it was just moaning about how the scene was already. And I don't know if you guys as like Americans in like the American country scene, which obviously has like a more weight and legitimacy as the originators of the genre, if you guys have that same debate at the time for you guys.
Yeah, I think you do. I think what's happening over here in the States is, there's commercialized top 40, call it pop country, and then there's what I would then classify as independent or alternative kind of country music, and I think it really is two different audiences. And I think what's important to note is that there can be some middle ground, and just because somebody likes popular country music does not necessarily mean that they would not like independent or alternative country music.
Exactly.
It's Florida Georgia Line is a really big example. They're probably one of the forefronts of pop country, and everybody will bash them and hate them, and I don't like them, but I'll tell you what they did do. They did bring millions and millions and millions of fans who before them hated country music, who then now do like country music. Now, does that mean that they're going to like the Plott Hounds? No, but if 5 of them end up liking the Plott Hounds, that's 5 more fans that we could have never have had before. So, I get the angst of popular music and how it's cookie cutter and there's no substance and no meaning. But I believe that there are fans who like that music that can then get into the Jason Isbell or BJ or the Plott Hounds or Mike West. You can't just eat sugar and drink soda all day. You might go to the snack store, but every once in a while you're going to look for something that might be better for you. And I think that is, where hopefully those fans will start to gravitate and mature a little bit and find, other forms of music. So.
Yeah, man. Because I've even been looking now at like how to get like not in a creepy way, but a younger audience. So it's looking at Twitch and kind of like video game soundtracks and that type of thing, because you hear all these people like in the last Assassin's Creed trailer that just dropped. There's a Blind Willie Johnson cover, Soul of a Man on it. Mm-hmm. So if that's being used for a video game, surely the demand or the maybe interest in that type of music's there. So it just needs to be fanned a little bit and fed a bit, and that's what I'm kind of looking at now. But I just hate this defeatist attitude of fans and even people who are involved in the scene to just be like, there's no point in winning them over. You just have to keep working and working and working. And I kind of say, but if you're working against a brick wall and you aren't taking any perspective or stepping back, surely that's just going to, from a mental health perspective, that's going to bore the shit out of you and it's going to affect you in the long run.
Yeah, I think your perspective is right. I think there's a little bit of both. You know, I think what you don't want to do is beat your head against a brick wall going after a fan base. That's just not gonna work. You know, and that doesn't mean that those fans will not come to you. But, you know, it's actually interesting. We attended a seminar by somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, not too long ago. And he kind of talked a little bit about find your audience and grow your audience. And by doing that, will hopefully then open the doors to fans who might be on the peripheral and bring them in. You know, for us, it's like there's Twitch or TikTok and Snapchat. And, you know, an independent band can literally lose their damn mind trying to provide content and market to all of those different social media audiences, which also have very different engagement, you know, and I think it's important to, you know, time is money. And, you know, where do you want to invest your time? For me, I want to invest my time in doing things that I love, which is music, obviously, but doing it on the right platforms that have our highest engagement. It doesn't mean we're not going to ignore or try not to engage. I just think it's important to make sure you're putting your primary fan base first and how you engage them, and then growing it from there, if that makes sense.
No, that's a really, really good point. I think you have to stay true to the people who have supported you for like the longest time, because they're the ones that are going to be like the biggest source of just support for you guys. That's a really, really interesting point.
We definitely have a Facebook crowd. Like that is through and through our best audience of people. And I mean, and our crowd is a little bit older, so it makes sense. But so yeah, putting something into TikTok, I've wanted to, but I also feel like the return just isn't going to be fully there for us. And I think us realizing that is a really important thing too, instead of beating our head against the wall on something that isn't going to bring anything back to us.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've always kind of viewed it as what would I enjoy. And I do use Twitch to like watch people and stuff. So I'm like, so I'd use that. I wouldn't use TikTok because I think I'm too old for it. So it's, and what do I put my efforts into? And I think it is, I don't even bother with Twitter anymore. That has no return for me in any way. So it's just Facebook, Instagram, and I'm going to maybe meddle with Twitch to see. And a mailing list is always the biggest thing as well. That helps me a shit ton.
Yeah. I think knowing your audience is as important, if not more important, than trying to break into a different demographic. And I'm not saying ignore that demographic or think it's hopeless that you can't get those fans. I mean, we've opened up in stadiums here in the States for some of the biggest pop country acts in the world. You know, I mean, 20,000 screaming teenage girls. I don't think there's one there over the age of 18. That is not our target audience. You know, that is not our core fan base. You know, but I guarantee you, you know, we made fans that night. We made fans playing on that show. And so it does happen, and it is real, but, you know, keep everything in perspective. I think that's probably the best way to look at it.
Yeah. And with those like massive stadium gigs, do you see like a spike on like Facebook or anything? Do you see a return from those shows?
Yeah, we do. You know, I think, you know, then it goes back to the same thing every independent artist struggles with, especially when you're competing with commercialized mainstream music is, you know, you get these big peaks, but then if you can't continuously have a PR engine following them up, it's whoop, and then you're freaking dropping right back down. And without the constant kind of, you know, press machine working with you, it's hard. And so I think that's another thing that we realized. We used to do radio campaigns and push hard for radio play and do radio interviews all the freaking time. And we realized we don't have, even when we do those and they provide value, it's the long-term game of that is not where we can be sustainable. And, it's not really our music anyways. It's not our format. And while there's plenty of those fans who listen to that music will become fans of us, it's just not where we really fit in. And I think realizing those types of things is liberating in a way, because then you can really then focus on what you're doing well and keep putting your energy, which is not limitless, right? We only have a certain amount of energy and effort, put it where it matters.
Interesting, man. And I think this is one of the big things I wanted to talk to you guys about was you've come over twice now to the UK. So how did you get the ball rolling on that first tour, which was, do I have a poster for it? Was that 2018? You guys came, it was 2018. You guys came over first?
Yep, 2018. That was when we were over there for our first trip. I think we've always been this way from pretty much day one as a band. And if you even want to go back from day one, Minnesota, which is, a state up in the northern Midwest here of the United States, the music scene here is predominantly based around cover artists and cover bands. And so from day one, we made a commitment to ourselves. That's not us. And so we will travel and tour and go anywhere where people will want to listen and give us a shot with our original music. So from out of the gates, when we first started writing, it was, we'll go anywhere with beer and air conditioning and places where we can play original music. So if that's Texas or California or Florida or Georgia or Indiana, we're going. And so, after a few years being in the band and, somehow we got a little bit of traction with some fans in the UK. And we said, well, we've always said we'll go anywhere anybody wants to hear us. And knowing that they want to hear our music. And, so I think we just kind of made the decision. It's like probably first year over, we'll be lucky to break even, and realize it would be an investment. We've learned a lot about, the United Kingdom and how fans receive music there. And it's a different type of fan. And is an old school or throwback kind of fan. And frankly, that's what we want. And so, instead of being passive about it, we're like, let's go get it.
Cool. And from a logistics point, Pat, what was it like? Because I know you didn't come on the 2018 one, but you were here for the 2019 one. So from logistics and tour managing, what was it like to get all this together?
I'm not gonna lie, it was the most overwhelming thing possible for me. It's like when we tour in the United States, it's like traveling as a kid, I knew where everything was. It's like I know I have a general idea. It's like I had to go and learn where things were in the UK. Even now, like if you're like, hey, point out where you played shows on a map, not fully sure if I could do it. So it's like that was a little terrifying, a little scary, and it was enough to throw me off my game for most of the tour, honestly. So, but logistically, it was really a group effort. I would not have been able to lead that charge by myself at all whatsoever. So the guys being there back in 2018 definitely helped me out through all that.
And obviously this year is basically cancelled, but when do you reckon you'll be back over in the UK?
Yeah, I mean we're fully committed as a band to going back there at least once a year.
Really sick one.
Yeah, I mean we've enjoyed every experience we've had over there. I think we've got really good support over there, especially given the limited amount of times we actually played over there, and love the country, love the people, and if I can go back there and play music every year, I consider that a pretty damn good time.
Yeah. So because I have no experience with this, but obviously to be a touring band and head over to the UK and things, there's so many things that like getting gear across, visas, things like that. Was that all a big struggle for you guys?
Yeah, I would say it was a struggle. That was probably the most stressful part of the trip. Was landing in Heathrow both times and getting through customs both times. Yeah. I mean, once we walked through customs, it was like, the flight over there was great. Landing was like, okay, anxiety's kicking in. And, there's a million different ways to go over there, especially, we're very fortunate with the government relationships between the United States and the UK. And it's not too much of a challenge, at least from what I've heard from our perspective. I hear differently from y'all trying to get over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's stressful. I mean, you can show up and you got all this stuff planned and all this money invested, and then it can be a little bit luck of the draw, whether you're going to get in or not. And it's nerve wracking, for sure. But I don't know. We're an outlaw country band, so whatever.
Yeah. But like,
I just remember going, like, when we were leaving, I had one of the agents asking me a bunch of questions. And I mean, we're going on 36 hours, no sleep at that point. So I don't even know what's coming out of my mouth. And I'm just like, don't mess this up right now. Like, we're about to head home. Don't screw this all up. And luckily he was just like, oh, you're going home? Yep. Okay. Thanks for visiting. And that was it. And I'm like, thank God.
Yeah. Nice. Well, like, I always think, just because obviously I'm a huge fan of you guys and like I love you guys as people, but to see you guys walk out onto the Ramblin Man stage and just know that, like, obviously, because you had a ball ache getting from the US to the UK, because you drove to Chicago, then you had to fly back, and then it was Wales, and then a 4-hour drive to Ramblin Man. So just those things alone, but for you guys to walk out on that stage was so fucking cool. That will,
let's just say the music stopped today, and the story of the Plott Hounds is the past 6 years. I'd like to think that we got to do some pretty amazing things and meet some amazing people and play in front of some amazing crowds. And I'd like to think that our music has impacted some people in a pretty amazing way. And, one of those things that, if you've got a mental highlight reel of some of the higher parts of our life as a band, would absolutely be Ramblin Man stage and walking out on there with no sleep. And, I don't even know what time we played at or where it was. It was kind of a twilight zone, and just, the adrenaline kicks in, and this is what we were here to do, boys, and let's go. And, sometimes, I think every musician questions, is what I'm doing worth it? Is it worth the blood? Is it worth the sweat? Is it worth the tears? Is it worth the anxiety, the stress? That was the moment where any ounce of self-doubt about, us as a group or our abilities, or are we going to connect with people in a foreign country? It was gone, and we were just able to be ourselves and play our kind of music. And that's one I'll cherish for as long as I get to play music, or as long as I don't.
Cool, man.
That day was actually like my first full year of working with the Plott Hounds. That was the day to the year. And it's just like one of those I never would have imagined. Like a year and a half before that, I was still thinking I was going to go to law school. I was still thinking, like, I'm going to be a lawyer when I grow up. And when like halfway through that set, it all just hit me that I'm like, I never would have thought this is where I would have been. So it was probably the coolest day of my life, honestly.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm glad you jumped onto this podcast, because I wanted to do one with you anyway, because everyone knows how musicians come about because of the self-doubt and they manage to find a guitar at some point in their lives. But how did you get to become a tour manager? What was your path into this?
Oh, man. So like through high school and everything, I was in bands and I played, and I was awful. I was god awful. So I kind of, that wasn't going to be my path. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a business degree. Hopefully this all comes back around at some point. I can work in the marketing side. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And ended up deciding I was going to go to law school. Got into a class one day and realized that I hated everybody in it. I hated every other person that I was sitting with. I was like, I can't do 3 more years of this. And so in that moment, I just started looking. I was looking at internships, like being on street teams, anything possible to get back into music. And graduated, and there was like 3 or 4 months of just me like sitting around like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with life. Luckily, one day Noah was like, hey, do you want to go to Sturgis with us? And I was like, yeah, of course. And weirdest weekend ever. And I don't know if he got like ever actually hired me on. I've just never left at that point. So it's kind of ended up here.
So with Tour Management, what do you think? Like, if someone wanted to be where you are, God forbid they ever ended up with a Plott Hounds version of something else, what would you think would be the main like characteristics or drive that they'd need to make this work and be a successful like tour manager like you are?
I wouldn't say successful, but
well, you're doing
main
it.
Thing
so,
is,
like, I always judge success by someone actually doing the thing and it working.
My biggest thing is be able to come up with solutions quickly for things, be able to run on no sleep, and be fine with being the sober person all the time. Those are probably the three biggest things. Like, just be able to think on your feet on most situations. Be able to plan out. That's it, really, and the rest will just come. And I'm still learning too. That's the thing. So,
I think one thing I'll say of having Pat, what Pat does aside from a million different logistical things, from scheduling, from routing to helping with tear down, helping with setup to driving. I think what Pat really does is remove a lot of worry and angst from me and the boys, and that's hard to put down on a job description or on your resume. But I can't really explain how much that really does for us, when we're wound up so much in general and just stressed out over life on the road and stressed out over, hell, my voice is going out and we've got 6 more shows, or are we going to get there on time? The ability for us to really be able to relax en route, or to not stress out about where we got to be, and have just small components of an uncontrollable lifestyle controlled, is frankly, I think, what keeps us going. And that's, I just can't put enough value into that and what that does for us. So
nice.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. And it's all recorded as well. You'll be able to play this backward before you go to sleep as well.
One of those where Noah's just like pissed off at something I did. Hey, remember that one time you said all those nice things?
Yeah. And obviously Noah with the Plott Hounds, so it's been 6 years. So 2014 the Plott Hounds were set up.
Yeah.
How has the lineup changed, and has like your perspective changed on songwriting and being in a band in those 6 years? Yeah,
that's a great question. So me and Jeff are the two original members. Him and I were, I guess, the founders of the band.
How did you guys meet?
Yep. So Jeff was in another band playing cover music, and they wanted to make the switch to doing original music. And so we met like a true love story. We met on the internet, and I had gotten the itch to start singing and writing songs again, and we met. And then from day one, I think I'd already written Southbound at that point by myself. I think I got our first rehearsal. We started going over it together, and it really just took off. I think the other guys in the band at that time had no idea how crazy I was. And like, once I'm committed to something, how hard I can probably push people and just go. And to no fault of their own, it wasn't the lifestyle that they envisioned. I think they got into it as a fun hobby. And I got into it as a way to save my soul. And those are two very different paths. Right. And then so from there, we made a couple of lineup changes. Everybody thinks they want to be in a touring band. Everybody thinks they want to write original music until you do it. And the reality is most people don't. They might think they do, but after doing it for a little while, it'll beat you down pretty damn hard. And so, I think that's probably the reason we've had, some of the lineup changes we've had is it all sounds great on paper, living the rock and roll lifestyle, but it ain't. It's hard, and it's tough work, and it's hard mentally, it's hard physically. It's a life that looks glamorous, but it's a life that has more dark places than light places. But really what I would say now is, the lineup that we've had, we've been consistent now for 3 years now. And it's the band. I mean, And I think one thing I've always tried to do is, even though Jeff and I have been the consistent ones, is anytime we bring someone on board, we want to make it their band as much as it has always been mine or Jeff's. And I think that's always been important to us. We've never wanted to be Noah and the so-and-sos or whatever. I've always wanted to be in a band. And what that means is everybody's working hard towards the same goal. Everybody's contributing. And it truly is a team effort and not some like hired gun approach.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And because I always find this fascinating about bands, because I was in a band a long time ago, and it was me and my brother-in-law was the guitarist, and we wrote like the skeleton of the songs. We took it to the band, and then we collaborated on it to bring it to what it could be. Is that kind of what you guys do, or do you write the lyrics and like most of the song and then bring it to the rest of the guys, or did they write some lyrics and things as well as the?
Yeah, that's a good question. So back when Jesse used to be in our band, he would come up with some of his own lyrics, and that's the first time ever that I would sing a song that was written by that essentially the lyrics are written by somebody else. For me, lyrics are so incredibly personal. I have to write them alone, and so I would say 95. Pretty much all of our catalog, with the exception of a couple of the songs from Jesse. It'll be me with the song, with the story, with all the lyrics, and then generally, the basic melody and chord structure, and then I bring it to the boys, and they rip it to shreds and make it 20 times better, so.
Yeah, because that drum riff in Damn the Wind is one of my favorite fucking riffs on any piece of music. I always enjoy listening to that. Like that, the way that builds is so fucking good. Did Tater bring that to that song?
Yeah, I don't even remember. I think, like, here's a good example. Like Kevin, our bass player, has written guitar riffs in songs. Like, so we really get so cross collaborative when we're in there. Like I wouldn't say I've written drum riffs, but I've given direction of like, that needs to sound like that, or switch up the beat or the emphasis on what, or whatever. People have given me, try singing this melody as opposed to this melody, so it's like everybody just throws out the ideas, and everybody's greenlit to try different things now, except for lyrics. I won't change lyrics.
Yeah. Well, that's fair enough, man. I just recently watched, there's a Slipknot documentary on YouTube, because they did Made of Vale in London or wherever it is in the UK. And they did a set, but it was interspliced with footage from the band. And the clown, like Sean, he talks about how he's honored that Corey gives them his lyrics. So then they don't change anything, they don't touch anything. There is that authenticity and personality and like protectiveness on those type of things that you can't really fuck with.
Right. Yeah, I think lyrics are tough. Even when Jesse had songs that were pretty much fully written with the lyrics, I would never in a million ways, think about changing a verse.
Yeah.
That's his story. That's how I view lyrics, as somebody's a story from them, and it's written in full. Now, the flip side of that, to me, a song, it's two parts. It's lyrics tell half the story, and then the music composition solidifies that story. And so that's where, to me, that's really where the band brings the songs to life. Without that, even with me just playing 4 or 5 chords over a bunch of lyrics I wrote, it's not a song yet. It's especially not a Plott Hounds song. It's not that until everybody has written their own version of it, and we've merged them all together. So.
And how long did Damn the Wind, the album, take to write as a creative thing? Obviously, with all the shit that happened with Pledge Music and everything, that obviously added on delays and all that fun shit that happened. But from the actual creative perspective, how long did that record take to write?
I'd say about a year, and that was the longest. So the gap between Lost Summer Day and Damn the Wind was the longest we've gone between recording in the history of the band. We actually have 2 records not to be named that are no longer on the internet. Thank God. But we were putting out at least an EP or a record like every 6 to 8 months when we first started.
Really?
And just rushing for content and just kind of running ourselves ragged. And the plus side of that was we did a lot of writing. We got a lot of songs out there. The downside of that was a lot of them sucked, and the production was horrible. and they were god awful, and we were young and didn't know any better. And so when, we got through Lost Summer Day, and that was when we kind of made one of our bigger kind of lineup changes. And I felt it was important to cut a new record with the new band, and let them put their stamp on it and make it be their band. And that was that record. And then from there it was, we're waiting on this next one. And we had some songs written, but there was never a rush to feel like we were up against the clock and we had to go cut in the studio. And we really took our time. We spent an entire summer touring and playing those songs out live before we ever cut them, which is something we had never done before. We had never toured out on new material that wasn't released. We'd leak a song or two and play it out and test it out. But I mean, we really had about 20 songs written, and like, let's go tour on them all. Let's go play them all in coordination with our, rest of our catalog and see what's working, see what's not. And I think that really did a lot of good things for us. It gave us time for the songs to breathe, for them to evolve. It just gave us better perspective, because there'd be so many times where we'd record a song that we loved how it went. 6 months later, we're playing it live in an entirely different way and being like, damn it, well, I wish we could have recorded it this way. It's so much better now. So we wanted to be patient, which is hard for musicians to be, and just kind of let the songs develop and build on their own. And I think it worked. I'm incredibly proud of that record, and I love every song on there and love how it came out. So
yeah, that's a good, man. I think that's a really important thing, because I did that kind of for The Next Life. I recorded all the vocals in January of 2018 and then spent like the next year and a bit touring it and playing it, because I just couldn't get it finished. I had to wait for other like musicians and stuff to play on it. So by the time it got to recording like the fiddle and the pedal steel, I could sing the songs better than I could when I first recorded it. So I just had to wipe every single vocal track. And even then I did the vocal takes, showed you guys on tour, and then you pointed out a few things. So I went back and then redid vocal lines for other things. And it's a constantly evolving process that if you don't cut off at some point, you can just keep spinning for the next 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, a record's never really done.
No.
Ever.
No, I was saying to my mate, John, in the last podcast, I kind of see everything. You can't achieve perfection. So you just have to kind of achieve the best you can do at that moment in time and move on. And the next one will be the best one you can do in that moment in time based on what you previously did.
Spot on, man.
With touring in the States, you've got your own tour bus and things. Is there any difficulties from traveling around in the States, or is it all like the different types of venues and things? What are the biggest challenges as a touring band in the US?
Yeah, I'll answer, then I'm sure Pat's got another answer to that too. I think for us is, the United States is really like 50 different countries.
Yeah.
And, it's not like the border restrictions, but every state has its own different culture and its own different identity. And it's also a lot of driving.
Yeah.
So I think that our biggest challenge is if we're trying to, especially in the Midwest, where things are a lot more spread out in the upper Midwest than they are like in the South or on the East Coast or the West Coast. For us to get going, it's like 4 to 5 hours in between every tour stop, getting out of the Midwest. When bands down south, like in Tennessee and Georgia, they can hit major cities with big enough fan bases and venues and only have to drive an hour and a half. So I think for us, the wear and tear of, going on a week or 2 week trip and we're putting on 4,000, 5,000 miles, that gets at you a little bit, and then just how different, every state really is. I mean, there's American cliches that are tossed around and 95% of them are probably true. But, each state kind of has its own uniqueness to it. And, probably not very different than, Northern England, Southern England, Wales, Northern Ireland, of course, Scotland. I mean, there's different aspects of culture that I think you always have to be aware of where you're traveling. I'll just say playing in Georgia, it's a whole lot different than playing in Minnesota, and so just constantly understanding, where you're at and adjusting yourself a little bit. Not changing yourself by any stretch of the matter, but just adjusting your etiquette and how you behave, matters a lot. So.
No, that was my big one too, is like being in the Midwest, I'm not saying it's a disadvantage exactly, but it does make
It's
it
a
harder when
disadvantage.
it makes it harder because we have. I mean, our next biggest cities are. Sorry, bud. I mean, Iowa City and Des Moines are still 6 hours away. Chicago is a long drive. So, like, to get to a big city that has a place where we might be able to really succeed, it takes a lot of travel time. Yeah. And even then, it's like you show up and you're like, well, we don't know how well we're going to do there.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be as well as we want to. So that's definitely, I think, our biggest challenge. I mean, you have artists that can survive purely just touring Texas. That's it. But there's so many places where like our style of music goes over well down there, and up here it's sparse.
Yeah.
It's, there's a lot of travel time.
I think that's one of the big things, and if you pardon the pun, like your drive is what defines you guys, because you are a really hard-working touring band, and I think that lends itself. So when someone, like, if you drive 6 hours to a gig, people know that you clearly give a fucking shit about that, and I think that's kind of lost for a lot of UK bands and even fans, where people won't travel like longer than 40 minutes to get to a gig. When you know that in America or in Europe, people are driving 6-7 hours just to play a show, and some people in the UK won't even cross like the Mersey to go to a gig. Yeah,
I mean, even in Minnesota alone, I mean, from playing in southern Minnesota to going up to northern Minnesota, which is on the border of Canada, that's 9-10 hours just in this state alone.
America's so fucking big.
Yeah,
it's a weird place, man.
Like that's
there was one night we went 9 hours. Well, it should have been 9 hours. It ended up being way longer, but from St. Louis, Missouri to Atlanta, Georgia, overnight, and that was, I mean, the longest drive ever. I was delusional by the time I like pulled over to fall asleep, and then it's like we got halfway there and we still had to drive more and then play a show. So it's like that definitely that wears on you pretty hard, honestly. It's just the drive time.
And I think people forget that even if you're not driving, just sitting, it sounds weird, but just sitting in a car or a vehicle that long just fucking takes the life out of you, and so that's kind of one of the biggest challenges we have is like, okay, road time, and then it's show time, and it's like you got to get up and go and find every little bit you got inside of you. And we're not a band that can purely rely on individual talents, so everybody has to be kicking ass from an energy perspective and then playing perspective. We don't have a whole lot to fall back on, so it's a grind for sure, but I mean, it's what we got to do and what we were committed to doing. So
like that's such a good mindset, and that's such a good like thing, because it's like America and Australia, I think, because Australia is fucking huge, is it's almost incomprehensible until you've driven it, which is what your guys' perspective is, where people think that like East Coast to West Coast is a day, but how long is, I have no fucking idea about American geography.
Like straight through, probably 25 hours, something like that, straight, like no stops.
That's right. I think we talked once, Noah, and we were talking about the Mississippi River, because I've always wanted to go to there, and that's 3 times longer than the UK, I think. That's so fucking big. Like,
I don't even think you knew it started in Minnesota.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Which I didn't expect you to know that. I mean, it's not like I could fucking point out where the Mersey was until I watched Muscle Show's documentary and heard Bono talking about the Mersey sound.
Yeah, but that drive, I think, is so key to a lot of people. Have you seen the Michael Jordan documentary on Netflix at the moment?
No, I need to watch it though.
Oh, it's so good. I think I'm 5 episodes in at the moment.
I grew up a Pistons fan, so it's kind of like I knew they were going to get thrown under the bus pretty hard.
Yeah, they do not get favorably.
I was like, no, I'm good. I'm good for now. I'll watch it eventually, but I just knew they weren't going to show us in a positive light.
No, that's the interesting thing, because obviously I've, like, as a surprise, I'm from England, so I've not really known anything about basketball in any way, shape, or form. But even as a kid, I knew who Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls were. and that was through like Space Jam, and then it was coming off the back of the Olympics and things. So this documentary's been like an eye opener to like the other caliber of teams, because you kind of view, because it's like the Bulls, Pistons, Celtics, and all these amazing teams come through that just have this insane drive to be the best.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just looked at a map. So from New York to LA is 3,000 miles and would take 42 hours.
Oh, I was way off.
From the border of Minnesota, where it hits Canada, down to the southernmost point, pretty much Homestead, Florida, is about 2,400 miles and would take 32 hours. So 30 to 40 north to south or east to west.
That's metal, man. Last year, I drove from like northwest of England down south, got on a ferry and went up to the Netherlands to Groningen, and I think that took less than a day, with like a break and a sleep in between as well. Like that was, I think, 7 hours straight driving, I think, if it needed to be. But we definitely
our goal when we're on, we consider like a good tour stop if we can get it with under 6 hours.
Really?
Between games. Yeah.
Well,
That's like we're feeling good about we only got a 5 hour drive today. We're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to get you over to Europe next time you come, guys.
We've going to the UK has been honestly one of the best experiences probably of my life. So we love traveling. We love bringing our music to new people, whether it's 1 or 1,000 or 10,000. We don't care. You know, it's the journey is half the fun, and you got to soak up, you know, the good moments when you can. So
yeah, definitely, man. It's such an interesting thing. So is there any like new music in the pipeline for you guys? Has anything been written? Is there an idea of a new record coming out in the future?
Yeah, there is. Absolutely. You know, I've probably got about 5 or 6 kind of half-written songs, and just haven't found, you know, just felt deflated based on everything that's going on. So just haven't finished them yet. But they'll get finished, and we will absolutely put out a new record. I don't know if it'll be late 2020 or early 21, but it'll be happening for sure. I mean, hell, we're halfway through 2020 already, which is just crazy.
Screaming by.
You know, so. But yeah, there'll for sure be a new record end of this year or early next year, and that's one thing when we all got together. You know, I think I'm so glad we did that, because that kind of reignited. You know, I think every musician's self-deprecating to a degree. So even though we didn't sound that great, I was like, man, we're not too fucking bad. You know, we can do this. You know, like we're all right. Like when we're together, we're a pretty good band. And I'm not trying to be confident or cocky, but you can beat yourself down pretty hard, and so kind of getting that energy back and be like, yes, let's write some more songs, let's get a new record, let's get back after it. It was good for us, and so I think it won't be long now before we're up to something. That's for sure.
Cool, man. I think that's a really interesting point, that you have to acknowledge. You know, no one wants to be like complimenting themselves and patting themselves on the back all the time, but you need to believe in what you're doing to keep on doing what you're doing. And I think what, like you've just said, there's really interesting, because if you aren't acknowledging how fun it is, even in like some points, and that you actually enjoy what you're doing, then there's kind of no point to do it. Amen.
There's a lot easier ways to make a living.
Yeah.
You know, so no one should need to struggle just to struggle. You know what I mean? So
yeah, definitely, man. It's such a weird thing to do, to be like, when you're just sitting there like, do I actually enjoy doing this?
You know, and I think, you know, I think it's okay to say no, you don't on some days. Because I'll tell you what, there's plenty of days where I'm like, why am I doing this? I hate this. This is not how I want to spend my time. But you have to take it a day at a time and look at it in perspective of the good with the bad. Because if you just focus on one or the other, you're doomed no matter what. If you only focus on the good times, boy, you're going to have a hard time doing anything. If you only focus on the shitty times and how much those suck, you're going to lose all motivation. And, you know, we're humans, right? We're emotional people. Thankfully, I think I'm pretty stubborn, and probably too stubborn to quit. And a bunch of people probably would have guessed I would have quit a long time ago. And I don't have it in me, for better or worse. But, you know, you have to it's okay to be like, man, this is brutal.
Yeah.
And then the next day be like, this is why we do this. You know, that type of up and down is okay, because that's how the music industry is. It's highs and really high highs and really low lows. You just got to be able to surround yourself with people to pull you out of it and believe in yourself and be with people who believe in you. Without that, we're all effed, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Were you gonna say anything then, Pat?
There was something I was just listening to like two musicians talking back and forth on a Instagram live, and one of the dudes was like, you don't do this just because you want to.
Yeah.
It's like you do it because you have to.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I don't think I wouldn't. I mean, I'm a little removed from all this, just being on the managerial side, but it's like I didn't do this because I wanted to. It's like I felt like I had to do it. Like there's nothing else I wanted to do in life. So yeah.
Yeah. I've always viewed it as that, and it's when people have been saying, because obviously I have a 9-to-5 job as well, so I'll be fitting gigs in between that, and I'll do like a gig Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and people will be like, well, aren't you tired? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, well, why are you doing this? I have never viewed it as a choice. It's always, if I don't do it, then I'm sat at home, which is obviously nice if I'm spending time with Civ and everything, but if I don't do it, then I'm not doing it, and why wouldn't I not do it?
I've kind of lately, like especially sitting at home, it's like I always complain that, man, I just wish I wish I had some downtime and I wish I was at home. And now it's like, man, I hate this so much. I wish we were stuck in the bus for 10 hours going to the middle of nowhere. It's just been kind of eye-opening where it's like, I'm like recentered now, where it's like, okay, this has been enough downtime. Like I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing, because like this is a perfect opportunity. If it wasn't, I'd be like, you know what, I'm fine, but I'm not. Like I want to get back into it as soon as possible. So
And was the last tour you guys did, it was with Drew Dixon, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. And how did that come about? And then I'm really interested in how you guys plot out like that type of tour for dates in the US.
Yeah. I guess I'll
go ahead, Pat.
So man, I've known Drew for a few years now, and kind of just started out as a really big fan of him. And we kind of built like a little bit of a friendship off of that. And then one day, Noah and I were sitting after they just wrapped up the set, and we're sitting at the bar, and I'm looking at the calendar. I'm like, dude, we got these 2 or 3 open slots on the calendar in February. Can we bring Drew with? Like, I think that'd be a great chance. Like, he's kind of in the same boat as us as far as like, you know, Nashville, South Carolina, Georgia, he has a really good audience, and then just hasn't gotten up to the Midwest a bunch. So sent him a slightly inebriated text. I was like, dude, like these are the days we got. Do you want to come with? And he jumped all over that. Really? And yeah, he was fully on board with it, which was pretty awesome. And we just went from there.
Yeah, I think one thing that we've always prided ourselves on, and not that Drew needed us to provide him an opportunity by any stretch of the matter, but we have always prided ourselves on bringing music, not just ours, but other people's music to other people, to crowds, whether it's bringing bands that we become friends with from Alabama or other artists in the Midwest who may not have an audience. Like we are not afraid to share our audience with people who we believe in, you know, and I think it's our duty, you know, frankly, to do that. And, you know, I'm saddened that that's not as common. We were fortunate when we went over to the UK, Mike, obviously with you, and then with Blackwater Conspiracy, who kind of took us under their wings on a shot and shared their audience with us. And you know, we got a lot of fans that are Blackwater fans, and that's a tribute to them, kind of extending their version of hospitality of what we try to do, you know, for bands, you know, in the States. We get out and do it. And if we believe in you and you're a good human and you're talented, then man, we'll put you on any stage that we have access to. And we take pride in doing that. And I think if musicians collectively had a little bit more of that in them, man, I think we'd be in a better place, to be totally honest.
Definitely. I think if you look at like the heyday, even up until the 90s in metal, when there was like Pantera and Skid Row and stuff, they all toured together. There wasn't necessarily a headliner, or it was all just sharing a bill, and it was more about having the fun experience of putting on a live show and sharing an audience than who was a headliner and who was what.
Yeah, I've never gotten and understood the competitiveness between bands.
No.
I mean, that's just something that has never even crossed my mind. What we're all after the same people.
Yeah.
And people or music listeners, that's everybody in the world. I'm a fan before I'm a musician. That's how I kind of view myself. And I just think we could, call out to musicians or any of y'all listen to this, man, bring someone on the road with you and give them opportunities that you might have liked to have had when you were at their point in your career. And, and luckily, we've been fortunate to have that karma return to us, with Blackwater and a couple other bands here in the US, and we're thankful for it. So
it's such a good idea, man. And I've only been doing this for 4 years, but one of my best memories and one of my best experiences as a musician was touring with you guys last year. Because not only were the shows great and the crowd's awesome, but it was fun to just hang out with like-minded guys. Outside of even playing the Islington Academy and getting to watch you guys at Ramblin Man, my best memory from that was in Folkestone, where we just stayed up till 3 a.m, sharing music and just fucking chilling. And I think a lot of musicians would so benefit from having experiences like that more when you tour together.
Agree, man. Absolutely.
I think we look at it as it's a family thing. All the bands that we tour with, you're in our family now. It's not like we're not working against each other. I mean, hell, outside of the guys that are immediately in Minnesota, some of my best friends are down in Alabama just because we toured with them and made such great friends with them that it is a family thing. I think country music is a family thing.
Yeah.
And if everybody just kind of was more embracive of that, I think everybody'd be a lot better off too.
Yeah, definitely. I think I don't know if it's a mindset or something, but as a fan, I don't listen. I've got an Ace Frehley Kiss tattoo and I've got a Johnny Cash tattoo. Doesn't mean they're the only two artists I listen to. So to think that people are going to be ride or die on one set band and not have any wiggle room is a really weird thing. And that collaboration, I don't know if it can work in other things, but in a live setting, doing that just seems so beneficial to everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that playlist. I wish we'd Spotified that so I actually had it to listen to, because that was a eclectic run of songs.
I was just thinking about that night the other day. Actually, I was like that. Those are the moments that I'm missing the most right now. It's just that. The shows are great and everything, but I miss just being somewhere that you haven't been before with 5 of your other best friends, and just the moments that come off of that.
Yeah, it's the tour stops for me. I mean, it's always the shows, but it's the days we have an off day and everyone's stress is gone and we're just cutting loose, or late nights on the bus. I mean, that's what builds the stench of character of a band.
Yeah. So. That's the thing, because last year I spent a week and a bit touring exclusively on my own. So the only people I talked to was once I got out the van and talked to the venue and the owner or whoever, and then the crowd. In between that, I was driving on my own, and it was good because I can enjoy my own company, but I don't think I'll ever tour exclusively on my own again, just because not having someone to share it with just lessens it. So even I did a bit of a stint a few months later, and I took Siv with me. But I'm definitely going to do another tour and bring someone else with me just to have that fun. I don't even, I'm not bothered about having to come a set time or split a fee or anything. It's just having someone else to bounce off of that, I think, is the most important thing.
Right. Absolutely, man.
But I think ending on this note, I'm going to let you guys go. I think I've chatted you off an hour now. It's the time difference is about 1 p.m. for you guys now.
It's 1:40 here, which is what 13:40. Excuse me.
Yeah. So I haven't eaten up too much of your afternoon or anything, but thank you so much for joining me, guys, and hopefully I'll see you in the UK for a live Into the Van at some point. I'll have to cram you all in that tour again.
You bet, my man. Appreciate you. Miss your face, buddy. Be good.
Catch you later, man.
Thank you so much, Mike.
No worries. And there we go. That's episode 7 of Into the Van, Into the Bag. Thank you so much for listening. If you have not listen to the Plott Hounds. I urge you to remedy that as soon as possible. Lost Summer Day and Damn the Wind are two fucking fine albums that are on Spotify. Obviously, with COVID and everything, if you can pick up their albums physically or send some money to the Plott Hounds way, it'd be massively appreciated. I really hope you enjoyed that talk. I know I did. There's so many gems that you can pick up from just talking to musicians that you wouldn't really think you would. And it can just be some minor details or a throwaway comment that can really change your perspective on these type of things. And I definitely am going to be listening to this conversation back. I had such a blast with it. And it was the first three-way Zoom podcast I had, so I edited out some silence and some confusion as to who was going to be talking, so I hope that it was smooth for you guys, and I had a fucking blast doing all of this. Until the next time, my friends, stay safe and stay healthy.